Okay, guys, let's continue learning. So, when we talked about myths explain how the world works, and it oftentimes includes gods and goddesses. So when you think of like Greek mythology, when you think of Zeus, Athena, princesses, kings, queens, all of those things are like myths. Okay, I don't know why I did that. Also, so now we're moving on to fables. A fable is pretty much something that you are mostly familiar with because most of the stories that we read are fables, right? It involves animals. That's the biggest clue that I'm going to give you. A fable involves talking animals, and it usually gives a moral or a lesson at the end. So, like, when you think of a fable, let's think of the tortoise and the hare, right? We all know that the hare was like boasting and saying that he was going to win because he was faster than the tortoise. But in the end, the tortoise ended up winning, right? And so the lesson that the hare learned at the end is to like, never judge a book by its cover, or to not brag, or whatever lesson you put in there, right? Okay, moving on. Now we move on to a tall tale. A tall tale is basically is when the author is exaggerating the truth about a character, right? Oftentimes, like, it'll be something way elaborate, or just like impossible for anything to happen in real life. So, for example, when you think about Paul Bunyan and how he cut down, the hugest tree, or whatever the story was, well, or if it says like, Jennifer Simmons touched the sun, that's impossible, right? And so a tall tale is like, when I think of tall tale, I think of something really like Jack and the Beanstalk, how that is like an exaggeration, right? We know that that could never happen in real life. But it has some like facts in there, but the story is just like not true. So for today and tomorrow, we're talking about myths, fables, and tall tales, okay? So let's go ahead and get into our model. This is where we're going to read the passage, and we're going to determine whether it is a fable, a tall tale, or a myth. And so I'm going to basically get my little handy dandy marker ready so that we can mark up the text, and we can try to give out some clues as to what genre this may be. So if you need to go back to your board equals paper to figure it out, that's totally fine, but follow along with me, okay? All right. It says, one bright day in late autumn, I know that that's the setting, a family of ants. Okay, so I know that ants are animals or insects. So that's like a clue. Were bustling about in the warm sunshine, drying out the grain they had stored up during the summer, when a starving grasshopper, his fiddle under his arm, came up and humbly begged for a bite to eat. What? Cried the ants in surprise. So we know that the ants are talking, right? So we have talking animals. That's a clue. Haven't you stored anything away for the winter? What in the world were you doing all last summer? So while we're picking out clues, we're also thinking about what's happening in the story. I didn't have time to store up any food, whined the grasshopper. I'm going to go ahead because this is also going to tell us something about the grasshopper. I was so busy making music that before I knew it, the summer was gone. The ants shrugged their shoulders in disgust. Making music, were you? They cried. Very well, now dance. And they turned their backs on the grasshopper and went on with their work. So when I think about what genre this may be, I'm thinking about the text. The text has talking animals, right? And so talking animals, that's definitely fable, right? And then it says it gives a lesson. So what lesson did the grasshopper learn? The grasshopper learned to prepare, right? Preparation is key. You can't just dance your way listening to music, right? You have to be responsible. And so the genre, of course, is fable. Okay? And so I'm actually going to put that in color. Okay. And so how do we know, right? And we're going to think about the elements. How do we know? So when you're doing your Google form, guys, I want you to start off by saying, I know because, okay? I know because the story has talking animals and the grasshopper learns a lesson at the end of the story, okay? And so that's how we know what the genre is. Okay, good. Let's go ahead and continue with passage number 2. All right. It says the world began with a small lamp. The world began with a small lamp. Somebody decided to turn on the light, and the second he hit the switch, sunshine appeared. So the second he hit the switch, sunshine appeared. Let's think about that. First of all, I don't think the sunshine operates by a switch. I don't think that is how it works. That seems like a really tall tale or like an exaggeration, right? Because we know that that's impossible. Nobody could just turn on a switch and then the sun comes on. That's not how it works. We know that the sun comes up and it goes down, right? And so when we look back at our board equals paper, notice how I'm going back to my board equals paper and I'm not just trying to think in my head. When I think about an exaggeration, that is definitely a tall tale because we know that this cannot happen in real life, okay? Even though the sun is real, we know that nobody turns on a switch for the sun to come up. And so this is definitely a tall tale, okay? And then how do you know? Remember, we're starting off by saying, I know because, okay? This story exaggerates the truth about the, or not the truth, but exaggerates facts about the sun, okay? Okay, good. So let's go ahead and move on to passage 3. So I have let me go back to my marker. Okay. It says, King Minos of Crete was a powerful man. So first of all, the fact that they're saying king is definitely a clue. Feared by the rulers of the land around him. When he demanded goods or men for his great armies, they felt they had to agree. When he demanded they send tributes to honor him, they sent them without question. It was the only way they could stop him going to war with them. But his demands on Athens became too much for them to bear. King Minos had a great palace. Okay, when I think of palaces, I think of gods, I think of goddesses, I think of kings, queens, built for himself. Inside this palace, Minos had built a great maze, a labyrinth, and at the center of the maze, he kept terrifying creatures, the Minotaur. Now, this was no ordinary animal. It was a monster, half man, half bull. Okay, and so this one is a little bit easier. We know that the only one that's left, of course, is a myth. This is a myth because it includes kings, queens, goddesses, right? And I'm actually going to add that to my board equals paper. Gods, goddesses, kings, queens, princesses, or princes. Okay? Good. Okay. Excellent. And so it says, how do you know? Let's go ahead and take that out. I know. And again, make sure you're putting I know because in your Google form. The story includes characters such as kings, queens, etc. Okay? Alright, good. Or actually, yeah. Well, the story includes, I don't want to say kings and queens because the story is a king. Okay? So now let's move on to our guided practice. Okay, guys, so you know that for guided practice, this is the time where I want you to pause the video and try to do it on your own. After you do it on your own, you're going to come back and we're going to work through it together to see if you were right or not, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and begin. I'm not going to like read through the whole thing. Because you should have read it while you were doing it on your own. I'm just going to pick out some of the clues that I found. So some of the clues that I noticed is that it includes animals. So I have lion, I have little mouse, I have lion, right? And then I see where the mouse is actually talking, right? Cried the little mouse. The mouse is talking. The lion was tickled, right? These are clues that I'm looking at. And so when I think about talking animals, I know that includes a fable, right? And so the genre is definitely fable. If you wrote that, then you were correct. And it says, how do you know? Let's go ahead and write how we know. I know because, and then at the end, you should have noticed that the lion actually learned the lesson about the mouse. He was judging the mouse by him being smaller than him, right? But he was able to do something that the lion couldn't. And so the lion basically learned the lesson of not to judge a book by its cover. Okay, so I know because the story includes talking animals and the lion learned a lesson. Okay, good. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right. Again, I'm not going to read through it. I'm just going to point out some things that I noticed. Okay. And so here it says that the coyote was the first creature on earth. Not really sure how true that may be. But that's what it's saying. That's a clue that you should have picked out. It said he would howl at the sun, hoping the sun would create him a friend. So first of all, the sun definitely cannot create friends. So that's something that's definitely not true. So the sun did, he named the friend Wolf. So apparently the sun created the wolf, right? To this day, coyote howls at the sun, but the sun will not make him any more friends and goes away at night. And so this story is definitely exaggerated. We know that coyotes and wolves are real, but a wolf was not created by the sun. That's impossible, right? And so since this is an exaggeration of some of the things that we know on Earth, this is definitely a tall tale. Okay? And how do you know? I know because the story includes an exaggeration of how the wolf and coyote were created. Okay, guys, so I'm actually going to go ahead and log off because we did all of our work. This is your time to move on to your independent practice. And so I want you guys to really take that seriously so that you can do well on your exit ticket. If you have any questions, meet me in my office hours. I'll be there because I know I've been forgetting about it. Or you can hit me up on Google Classroom or my phone. Toodles, see you later.